Welcome to Spend Logic. This short tutorial will tell you the basic steps you need to know to write a parametric analysis report, also known as a yardstick analysis. Before watching this video, you'll want to make sure that you're already familiar with how to create a new report, which is covered in a separate video, because we pick up here where that tutorial left off. This report type would be used if you didn't compete and can't use historical prices as a basis for your analysis. Raw materials or other items that are typically purchased at prices expressed by dollars per unit of measure are good candidates for this method. Let's get started. Here we have a purchase order with multiple parts. We know it's a purchase order because of our header, which shows PO and does not have a red Return to PO button. I'm going to click Edit next to the item that indicates Parametric in the type column. This opens the Proposed Price Details screen. The purpose of this screen is to enter details related to the proposed price. Your part number will already be visible since you entered it on the PO Procurement Details screen. However, if you decide that you want to change the part number, you can do that here. This is helpful if you want to copy a report and change the part number, but keep the rest of the data intact. We cover that in another video, but for now, there's no need to change it. Clicking the input box for current delivery date allows you to type in a date using the month, day, year format. To eliminate the possibility of formatting errors, click the calendar icon to bring up the date chooser. The date you enter in this step should refer to the midpoint of deliveries. This is used for escalation purposes in a later step. If you have only one delivery date, that's what should be entered here. The next box is unique to this method, and it's the unit of measure input. SpendLogic needs to know how the price of this item is being measured. Some examples of this are dollars per foot, dollars per pound, or dollars per line of code. Input the appropriate unit of measure. In this case, I'm going to be using dollars per foot, so I would enter the word foot. Current quantity and proposed price per unit refer to the quantity and price that were proposed by the supplier. Be sure to enter only the recurring price in price per unit. If your procurement has non-recurring, it needs to be broken out of the per unit price in the next box. The purpose of this is to ensure that the system maintains its accuracy. When you're done with this page, click Next. In order to use the parametric method, it's required that we show that there's a standard measure of price in the marketplace. There are several ways to do this. The first is to provide a commodity spot price. This is appropriate for commodities whose pricing is set by the open market, such as raw materials. Comparable market prices is appropriate if there isn't necessarily a commodities market, but there is an active commercial marketplace that provides information on dollars per unit. The third option is actuals from a similar internal project. If your company has collected actuals that aligns with the current effort, then they can be used here. Note that this refers to projects that were completed internally, not projects that were outsourced. Past outsourced projects should be used in a historical price analysis, not parametric. Lastly, if you have other methods by which you have determined the published price reasonable, you can choose other. For example purposes, I'm going to use the first option, commodity spot pricing. Regardless of which of these you choose, SpendLogic will require that you require a short description of the source used. In the next box, you're asked to provide an explanation as to why the source can be relied upon. Your objective in answering these questions is to convince an auditor that the data source you're using will result in an accurate analysis result. Next, you're required to upload documentation of the data source. Typically, this will be a screenshot. Towards the bottom of the page, SpendLogic asks some questions about the baseline pricing that is being described above. In the dollars per unit box, input the price your source data recommends. For example, if you used commodity spot pricing and the market price is $35 a pound, you would enter $35. Next, if there are non-recurring costs that should be taken into account, you can choose Yes in this box and provide the amount and a further explanation. SpendLogic then asks the quantity for which the market pricing is valid. For example, if your spot price indicates that $35 a pound is valid for up to 5 pounds, you would enter 5. If the market price doesn't have a limit, just input a number that is larger than the quantity you're purchasing. Lastly, the price validity date refers to the date through which the price is valid. For spot pricing, the date would be the day the price is observed. If you are using a catalog or website that shows annual or quarterly prices, enter the last date in that period. When you're done with this page, click Next. This screen corrects for differences in timing between historical and current procurements. The basic concept is that $1 yesterday doesn't buy the same amount of goods and services as $1 today. The first question asks whether you want to use separate indices for labor and material. If you have a breakdown of cost elements and therefore know what % of the purchase each represents, choose yes. Otherwise, choose no. Next, you're asked to choose an index. These indices are based on Bureau of Labor Statistics, which produces pricing indices by NAICS code, or NAICS code. By choosing the index that most closely relates to the NAICS code of the item you're buying, SpendLogic uses the information entered in previous screens to calculate an escalation factor. This is automatically applied in the analysis value in the upper left part of the screen. Click Next. This screen allows you to make adjustments to price based on differences in complexity or market conditions. If the item you're purchasing is the same as the item purchased previously, choose Identical and click Next. If you're purchasing an item that is similar to the previous purchase, choose Similar to. You're then presented with a number of inputs. First, SpendLogic asks what part number this item is similar to. If you're purchasing a part with the same part number, enter that here. If the prior purchase had a different part number, that prior part number is what should be entered. Next, briefly describe how the parts are similar. Often, auditors issue findings due to not feeling comfortable that the items claimed as similar truly are. Be sure to make a good case for yourself and explain why the two items should be considered comparable. Next, we're asked to show the differences. A best practice is to list each difference separately. Start with a short description of the difference, such as change in material from steel to aluminum. Next, provide the dollar per unit impact of the change described. This can sometimes be tricky and may require help from a technical focal. Enter a positive number for increases in price and a negative number for decreases. The next box is where you provide an explanation of the dollar value provided above. Explain how you came up with the adjustment and be as specific as possible. This is an area of high risk in audits. At the bottom, you're also provided an opportunity to upload supporting documentation. Include anything that helps support either the comparison of these items or the basis for differences in cost. If you used a technical evaluator, it's a good practice to include documentation of tech eval inputs here. Scrolling down to the bottom of the page, you see there's a box that shows total adjustments and adjustment as a % of basis. Total adjustments is a sum of all of the values entered above. In this case, I had one adjustment and it was $50. Adjustment as a % of basis divides the sum of the adjustments, $50, by the basis price per unit. This value is an indicator of the magnitude of the difference. If this number is greater than 20 to 25%, this may face additional scrutiny in an audit, so make sure the rationale entered on this page is strong. When you're done with this page, click Next. This is our risk check screen. As with all methods, if you see a lot of red flags on this screen, it means that your report is likely to be scrutinized. Try to minimize the number of risk checks. For those that can't be removed, make sure your explanations are complete. Click Next when you're done with this page. Now you get to our final summary screen. You can review the entries and download the price analysis report using this button, or review all of the entries that you've made below. When you're done, clicking Return to PO returns to the original screen that you started at. This concludes our video. Thanks for watching.